Do you need a new legend main or just want to learn about all the Apex legends? If your answer to either is yes, then today I'm going to be explaining all 20 free legends so you can understand their abilities and how to play them properly. So sit back, relax, and let me take you to the wonderful world of the Apex legends. For the legends in the Assault class, they have the ability to carry 4 stacks of ammo instead of the regular 3. They can also open a secret compartment in the new red loot bins, and in this compartment they can find attachments that will always be better than your current ones, also known as smart loot. They also have a 100% guarantee of one slot being an optic in the compartment, as well as getting a guaranteed weapon if you open an assault bin without any weapon equipped. The legends in this class are great for putting in mad damage and area denial. We're starting things off a little bit sour with Revenant, who's arguably the worst legend in the game. Ever since he was nerfed, Revenant has been in a weird spot in the game. His passive Stalker allows him to crouch walk faster and climb 6 times higher than other legends. And while his passive isn't completely useless, it is heavily reliant on the surrounding areas, and sometimes crouch walking is simply not an option. Revenant's tactical silence lets him shoot a device with a decent area of effect that deals some damage and straight up blocks enemy abilities for 15 seconds. And this can be pretty useful when timed perfectly. Otherwise, it's just a binary inconvenience. His ultimate, on the other hand, is his saving grace, the Death Totem. Once placed, it protects you from certain death. Instead of getting killed or knocked, you'll just end up back at the totem. This ability saw a lot of use in the Rev Octane meta, where users would combine Octane's jump pad and Revenant's totem. Players could use the totem and then launch into an enemy team with little to no consequences. This was definitely one of the most annoying metas in Apex, and nowadays Revenant is out of the meta, and there isn't really any point in playing him. Good riddance. His hitbox is super easy to hit, and in my opinion his abilities don't provide enough utility. But I've been hearing some rumblings about updates to Revenant's kits, so there may be hope for the once dangerous Simulacrum in the future. Although she might not be as bad as Revenant, Ashe is a legend that was added in Season 11 and since then has remained a low-tier pick. Her passive Marked for Death shows the location of recent death boxes and lets her scan them to mark surviving attackers. So if you're looking for a third party or more kills, Ashe can be of assistance by following the appearance of death boxes on the map. But honestly, as of Season 16, there are plenty of other reliable ways to find enemies with any Recon legend, but more on that later. Her tactical, the Arc Snare, allows her to throw a spinning snare that damages and tethers enemies who come in contact with that snare. This is very useful to hold doors with if you need to get away and heal, and also extremely useful for limiting enemy movement on the zipline. So if you need to kill a TTV Wraith in streamer building, a well-placed Arc Snare could solve all of your problems. And finally we have Ashe's ultimate, which is her most powerful asset. The Face Breach rips open a one-way portal to your desired location. You can use this to instantly take high ground and aggressively push teams. I don't recommend you use her ability as a getaway tool because people will just follow you and you will die. Like I said, it's best to be aggressive with the ability, especially since Ashe is in the Assault class and can carry more ammo. Although Ashe is nowhere near being called viable, you can still find some fun with this legend. Finally, more or less a viable legend, Fuse is one of those legends who hits the mark. He's fun to play and can also be competitive if played right. His passive Grenadier lets him carry one more grenade per inventory slot and enables him to fire grenades faster, farther, and much more accurately. So you can just spam those grenades at your enemies, leaving them little to no breathing room. When you pair this with his tactical, the Knuckle Cluster, which lets you launch a cluster bomb that continuously deals damage, you can also give your opponents a pretty uncomfortable and frustrating experience. His ultimate, the Motherload, lets Fuse launch a bombardment that encloses a selected area in a ring of fire. The enemies within that ring are then scanned and exposed for your teammates. You can use the Motherload to deny area and isolate enemies from each other. This is best used at a safe distance since Fuse himself takes damage from it. Overall, Fuse is a great legend for harassing teams out of position, especially if they're being generally passive or defensive in play. Although he hasn't been solidified in competitive, pro players still whip him out every now and then to drop a 5k. Unlike the previous legend, Bangalore shines in all aspects of Apex, from competitive to straight up pub stomping. She is a great pick that offers a decent level of challenge while also remaining useful. Her passive Double Time lets her move much faster when being shot at. It is quite a challenge to hit a Bangalore who's tap strafing with Double Time. Her tactical Smoke Grenade also pair nicely with her passive. You can use the two in combination to get away from your enemies. The smoke canisters are also very useful for blocking line of sight of the enemies. and with that in mind, you can use it to avoid getting pinched by 2 teams at once. Keep in mind that Bangalore smokes do have a bit of a learning curve to use effectively because you kinda have to envision the space and what angles you cut off. Her ultimate Rolling Thunder calls in an artillery strike to devastate your enemies. It causes long stun and deals damage. The Rolling Thunder is best used to get entry damage or prevent enemies from pushing up, but I'm sure you can find many other uses for it. As an assault legend, Bang gets a guaranteed optic in the hidden compartment on the red bins, and there's a good chance that you will get a digital threat which helps you see enemies through your smokes. One of the best Bangalore players in the world, Shiv FPS is so good at combining all of her abilities to dominate lobbies. Because like the way he takes space in fights using her abilities is just amazing. In general, Bangalore is a great legend and is a joy to watch in the hands of great players. The lunatic Mad Maggie will stomp your balls and spit in your face, and you won't even have to pay her for it. The abilities allow her to be a more serious menace to the Apex games. Maggie's passive Warlord's Ire lets her move much faster with a shotgun and highlights enemy players that she has dealt damage to. I strongly advise to always have a shotgun when you're playing Maggie to fully take advantage of her passive, because it is very strong when you're taking a peak battle. The increased movement speed actually applies to aiming down sights, so if you aim down sights with a shotgun, like the Peacekeeper with its choke, you don't get that ADS movement penalty, you can just continue peeking at full speed. Her tactical Riot Drill is no different, as it shoots a drill that burns enemies through objects and walls. This ability is very good for area denial and can help you force players out of cover. Like, trust me, it's really annoying to deal with a Maggie who is constantly drilling you and blocking your line of sight as well as doing damage. Maggie's ultimate Wrecking Ball wreaks havoc in the game. The ball releases speed boosting pads and detonates near enemies and causes them to be stunned for quite some time. It can break through everything, including Gibraltar's bubble. Keep in mind though, for whatever reason, the ball sometimes is inaccurate and might just blow up for whatever reason. They might get stuck on your teammates or stuck on random stuff on the map. When it works, it's great. It's great. She's still a good legend. She's still viable. Maggie finds a lot of use in comp, especially on maps like World's Edge and Broken Moon. And by the way, of course, you can always catch me playing Maggie in scrims or in ranked on stream over at twitch.tv/Ottr. Anyways, moving on, that was all the Assault Legends. Skirmisher. The Skirmisher class is home to all of the flashy legends, and some could argue that it is too bad that the class perk is dog water, but honestly, it would just make these legends way too strong if they had as strong of a class passive as any other classes in the game. Because as a Skirmisher, you get the ability to scan the care package in the air for the highest rarity item. This can help you if you want to get the items for yourself, or just be in the know whether someone is using a Kraber or Bokek for whatever reason. So it is kind of useless for 99% of users, but if you want more knowledge, or in some cases, which we'll get to later, it will actively help your Legends kit, but we'll get to it later. Mirage is arguably the second worst legend in the game right before Revenant. You see, despite the updates he received in Season 16, it's still not enough to make him a viable pick. But of course, he's still fun to play. The absolute joy, the ecstasy of seeing your enemies shoot a decoy that's not you is one you need to experience every day. Mirage's passive lets him become invisible while reviving players, and his revived teammates stays cloaked for 2 seconds until they take their guns out. If the audio works, enemies can still hear you revive and pinpoint your location, so try not to rest in the open thinking you can get away with it. Mirage's tactical Psych Out is pretty fun to use. You can send out a decoy which can be manually controlled to copy your movements. It is best to send this out of corners or cover to bait your enemies' bullets and then shoot them while they're reloading. Enemies who shoot your Psych Out will also be tagged, and you will be able to track them for a short period of time. At lower skill levels, this tactical can be effective, but once you start getting to the higher ranks, it becomes a little bit useless, or rather you have to think about it differently. Where in the lower ranks, you can just kind of send the decoy out and they're going to be shooting it and continue shooting it and not realize it's a decoy. In the higher ranks, the enemies will know that it's most likely a decoy if it moves like a decoy, which means that if you want to fake a high level player out, you should pretend to be the decoy yourself and run in a very bot-like manner. It's a whole mind game, and we don't have time to get into that in this video. And building off Psych Out, we have his ultimate Life of the Party, which lets you send out multiple decoys to bamboozle your enemies. You would think this could help, but any experienced player would pinpoint you easily by shooting the Mirage with no footstep audio. Nonetheless, combining this with your passive can provide some insurance. It is important to remember that Mirage's ultimate refills very quickly, so feel free to use it more often. Overall, Mirage shines best when your enemies don't know what they're doing. Octane is a legend that has been in the hearts of players ever since its release, and even after the heavy nerfs to his kit, he still has an insanely high pick rate. This is because he's just too damn fun to play. His passive Swift Mends lets him automatically regenerate health slowly when he's not taking damage. The passive eliminates the need to carry a lot of syringes or medkits when you are playing Octane, and the passive makes sense when combined with his tactical, which lets him use a stim to move faster for 6 seconds at the cost of some of his health. A common mistake Octane players make is to stim twice before pushing a player. You need to understand that stimming takes 20 flesh health, and if you stim twice before a fight, that's 40 health gone. If you have a purple shield that leaves you with 160 health, which is literally 10 health away from being white armor. So if you want to maximize his tactical, learn some movement techniques so you can take less damage while also being flashy. Octane's ultimate, Launch Pad, is pretty straightforward. It is a pad that helps you and your teammates maneuver the map easier by giving you a jump boost or a launch when you're in the air. If you pair this with some movement techniques like tap strafing or flick strafing, you can have greater control of where you want to go using the pad. His pad is best used for aggro pushing if your enemies don't have a line of sight, and for preemptively getting away. For a brief period of time, Octane's pad was used in combination with Revenant's ultimates to bring terror to the lobbies, but it's not really meta anymore. As for Octane's competitive viability, he remains a very low tier pick at most, because there are other legends that serve the same purpose while also providing more value. However, one of the better Octane players, Storman, has been able to pull off some beautiful things with Octane in high ranks. In summary, Octane is a great pick if you just want to have some fun. But if this was before Season 16, you wouldn't be having fun against the next legend, which of course is Horizon. Horizon is a brilliant astrophysicist who was trapped in a black hole for 87 years before being rescued by the Apex Games. Her abilities revolve around manipulating gravity, which gives her a tactical advantage over her enemies. First up, let's talk about the passive ability, Spacewalk. This ability reduces her fall impact and increases her control and mobility in the air. This means that she can quickly traverse the map, escape dangerous situations, and get the drop on enemies from unexpected angles. Playing Horizon makes you feel so fast, it makes your movement look extravagant. Her tactical ability, Gravity Lift, creates a portal that lifts players into the air, providing them with a high vantage point and tactical advantage over their enemies. It is a great way to reposition quickly, escape danger, flank unsuspecting enemies, or maybe pop a battery when you're a little bit harder to hit. Imagine being able to surprise your enemies from above and taking them down before they know what hit them. But keep in mind, since Season 16 there has been some pretty heavy nerfs to her tactical, you no longer have 100% accuracy on her lift. However, they do this by changing your accuracy of the weapon to your hipfire accuracy on the lift. So if you have a laser sight equipped on a SMG, you'll still be able to hit some pretty crazy beams. But don't worry, with that nerf came an increased speed on the lift, and it seemed like they wanted to make her a more movement-oriented legend instead. Hence the reason they ended up putting her in the Skirmisher class. Horizon's ultimate ability, the Black Hole, creates a singularity that pulls enemies towards its center, slowing them down and making them easier to hit while highlighting them. This ability is fantastic for controlling the battlefield, separating enemies from their team, and creating opportunities for your team to strike. You can use the ult to suck off enemies who are holding a door, and the key thing with playing Horizon is knowing when to use her abilities. Doing it perfectly will result in dominating gameplay. In conclusion, Horizon is a stunning legend that requires quite a bit of mastery to provide value for their team. And of course, I'm talking about team play right now, but our next legend, Wraith, doesn't seem to think that her team matters. Wraith's abilities are all about repositioning, escaping danger, and outmaneuvering her enemies. First up, let's talk about her passive ability, Voices from the Void. This ability alerts her when enemies are nearby and can even give her hints about what kind of danger is coming her way. It's like having your own personal warning system. But the reality is that her passive rarely works and is just as useless as having her for teammates when solo queuing. Wraith's tactical Into the Void allows her to quickly disappear into another dimension, making her invulnerable and almost invisible to her enemies other than a small trail of a wisp. It's a great way to escape danger, flank unsuspecting enemies, or reposition yourself quickly during a firefight. A common misconception is that her tactical is a get-out-of-jail-free card, when in fact it is not. Her tactical should be used preemptively in order to avoid bad situations instead of getting out of them, like getting killed while moving up or running away in your tactical only to be chased down and killed as soon as you materialize once again. Oftentimes, knowing when to use your tactical is what separates a good Wraith from a bad Wraith, And finally, Wraith's ultimate ability, Dimensional Rift, creates a two-way portal that she and her teammates can use to quickly travel across the map. After the massive distance buffs to the portal, this ability has now become exceptionally useful in the game, especially in the comp scene for making late-game decisions and taking positions that you'll want in the mid to late game, or repositioning your team during a fight. Wraith is also great for pub stomping and can be a problem for most players since her hitbox is one of the smaller ones in the game. She has become synonymous with movement players like Fade, who has thoroughly mastered her kit and makes some pretty insane plays using her abilities. Pathfinder has to be hands down the most fun legend to play in the game. He is the purest mobility legend with all abilities centered around getting around the map quickly, which makes him a fantastic pick for players who want to be everywhere at once. He received some buffs in Season 16, which makes him more viable for rotations and competitive play. His passive, although updated, can be considered lacking, however, I kind of see a lot of value from it now. Basically, his passive Insider Knowledge gives him a 10-second permanent reduction on his ultimate cooldown when you scan the care package, but it also gives you a complete refund of your zipline, so you can put a zipline out, travel it, and then scan the package, and then put another zipline down, and maybe even do it at a third time. You can do very long ziplines thanks to this passive. Pathfinder's tactical grappling hook enables Pathfinder to grapple onto objects and quickly zip around the map. It's great for reaching high up areas, dodging enemy fire, or repositioning yourself during a gunfight. It is important to understand how his grapple works so you can properly utilize it in fights, so you should probably take some time in the firing range to see what is possible and what isn't. And when you're out playing the game and rotating and just running around, play around with it a bit, see how it works. His grappling hook is great for being aggressive and catching players off guard. His ultimate zipline gun creates a zipline that everyone can use to transport themselves around the map. Season 16 came with a much needed buff to the kit, and the ultimate ability was extended to 200 meters, and your teammates get an increased speed boost on his ziplines. And although Pathfinder is very fun to play, most people seem to forget that he has a very large hitbox and he takes a lot of damage for free. The best Pathfinder players do take that into account whenever they are playing him, because it would be a shame for you to do all this cool movement only to get one clip the second you're peeking as a Pathfinder. Nevertheless, Pathfinder is a very versatile legend and can be played in a variety of ways, but it does take some skill to be the best at him. Valkyrie, unlike the previous legend, doesn't take too much skill to get down, other than spending some time getting acquainted with her jetpack. She's arguably the best skirmisher, at least for comp anyway, and it's very easy for players to pick up. Her passive VTOL Jets lets you fly by double tapping or holding down your jump button. Keep in mind that the jetpack uses fuel, and you can only fly for so long before your fuel tank is empty. The passive is great for reaching high ground, taking angles, and of course, oobing, because she's just built like that. Valkyrie's tactical Missile Swarm is the only offensive part of her kit. The Missile Swarm allows you to shoot a fleet of mini rockets that damage and stun your enemies. This is great for those situations where your enemy is one shot behind cover, or if you're simply looking to apply pressure on a team. Valkyrie's ultimate is the most powerful part of her kit, and it is what truly sets her apart from the other mobility legends. The Skyward Dive from Valkyrie enables you to launch up into the air and skydive. It's like having a portable jump tower wherever you go. The best part is, your teammates can latch onto you as well, and you can scan enemies while diving in the air thanks to your second passive. So it's great for knowing if a building is taken or not before dropping into your death. Knowing the right time to will drastically improve your win percentage as well. While other teams are struggling to rotate into the zone, you'll be the ones already inside of it, ready to hold them out. So the ultimate ends up being the most effective if you or someone on your team has some pretty good macro knowledge. Overall, Valkyrie isn't a bad pick at any skill level. And of course, as promised, the Recon class lets legends in this class scan beacons which reveal enemy locations on the map. However, the scan players would also be able to tell you where they were scanned from, so you have to use this at your own risk. The legends in this class have been dominating the meta ever since Apex came out, but honestly recently the tide might have begun to shift. Anyways, since Season 16, Bloodhound's identity has been changed. They are no longer the brutish scanner they were before, but is now more of a pure tracker legend. The abilities have been greatly modified to lean them toward this direction. Bloodhound's passive tracker allows them to see tracks left behind by enemies. It also causes White Ravens to appear if no enemies are immediately near you. If you interact or scan the Ravens, you will get 20% of your ultimate back and will also lead you to the nearest enemies. Scanning a Raven with your tactical on top of giving you that ultimate charge also immediately refunds your tactical's cooldown. So if you're struggling to find where the fights are happening, Bloodhound might be the legend for you. Their tactical Eye of the Allfather has a 25-second cooldown and lets you reveal traps, enemies, and clues through all obstructions. Although it isn't as powerful as it used to be, it can still provide some value. And of course, Beast of the Hunt is Bloodhound's ultimate ability, and it gives you improved senses, increasing your movement speed, and lets you track enemies more easily by spawning white ravens after killing them. You can also extend the duration of your ultimate by getting a knockdown, the amount of time extended depending on how soon you got the kill after you popped your ultimate. Sadly, Bloodhound has fallen out of the comp meta due to the nerfs to their kit, but still remains an okay pick if you know what you are doing. Vantage is probably the worst Recon legend with an absurdly large hitbox and honestly mid-tier abilities. Aside from her tactical, she's just straight up boring to play. I see no good reason to play this legend, and she isn't even easy for beginners to learn. Her passive is called Spotter's Lens, and it lets her use a mid-long range scope to see a bullet drop indicator, which shows where your bullets should land, which is pretty useful if you've never used the guns before. The passive also shows how many enemies from the squad are still alive, and it shows their shield level. Her tactical Echo relocation is the most useful part of her kit. It lets you send out her pet bat, Echo, and launch yourself towards its location. Many might think that you need to keep Echo flying up in the sky so you can activate it more quickly, but if you have Echo put away and you hold the Echo relocation key, so that's your tactical key, you will actually deploy Echo towards where you want to go, and then immediately jump afterwards. You don't lose any time doing that. If you combine this tactical with some crazy movement techniques, then you would end up with some pretty crazy movement. Vantage's ultimate is pretty powerful at the early stages of the game, but it does get less useful as the game progresses. Sniper's Mark lets her use a default sniper rifle which has 5 shots. The sniper rifle marks enemies and has a damage bonus for every hit after you mark the enemy. Although it may seem like she has some cool abilities, the reality is that she doesn't really provide that much value to the team, and she can only be made effective by extremely high-level pros who could do the same thing in any other legend anyway. Definitely one of my least favorite legends, I can tell you that much. Crypto, on the other hand, is actually really good, just really underappreciated. Although he also requires a certain level of skill and especially game knowledge to be effective, he provides much better value to the team, especially at higher levels. His passive ability, Neuralink, allows him to scan nearby enemies and reveal their location for his team for up to 30 meters. This can be incredibly useful for gaining information and planning your strategy. Crypto's tactical ability that uses the Neuralink, Surveillance Drone, is a flying drone that he can pilot around the map. The drone can be used to scout out enemy positions, hack into survey beacons and reveal enemy locations, and even pick up teammates' banners if they have been eliminated. However, using the drone leaves Crypto vulnerable, as he cannot move or defend himself while controlling it. Finally, Crypto's ultimate ability, Drone EMP, releases an electromagnetic pulse that damages shields and slows down enemies in a large radius around the drone, about 30 meters, so the same as your Neuralink, meaning that if they're scanned, you're going to hit them with the EMP. This can be a devastating attack when used correctly, as it can disrupt enemy formations and allow your team to push forward. The best Cryptos know when to time their EMP. For example, in a scrim game, you would wait for an enemy team to place down their Watson Gen or Seer ultimate first before you use your EMP to give you the advantage. Overall, Crypto is a versatile legend that can provide valuable information and disrupt the enemy strategies. However, he has a level of complexity and requires some practice to be used effectively. If you enjoy playing support roles and providing strategic advantages to your team, you may find Crypto to be a valuable addition to your lineup. Seer is Mr. 2OP himself. No matter how many times he's been nerfed, Seer always finds a way to make it back into the meta. Seer is a Recon legend in Apex who specializes in gathering information and providing his team with a tactical advantage. His abilities require a certain level of skill to use effectively, but they can be incredibly powerful in the right hands. Seer's passive ability, Heartseeker, allows him to see and hear the heartbeats of enemies who are within a certain range. This can be a valuable tool for tracking down enemy players and locating their positions, even if they're hiding behind walls or other obstacles. In Season 16, his passive was nerfed, so it is no longer a constant scan, but instead only flashes with enemy positions as their heart beats. And of course, enemies scanned by the passive are notified by the audio cue. Seer's tactical ability, Focus of Attention, sends out a series of micro-drones that reveal the location and the movement of nearby enemies. It has a pretty long range, so feel free to shoot for the moon. This ability is best used right after putting down entry damage or even getting a knock, so you can attempt to cancel their healing items as well. With his tactical, you can extend your upper hand in a fight by timing this perfectly. Finally, Seer's ultimate ability, Exhibit, is his most powerful one. It creates a dome-shaped field around the little thing you throw on the floor that reveals the locations of all enemies within its range. You can use this ability as both an offensive and defensive ability. A well-placed Seer ult can deter teams from pushing up on a knock that they got, and the Exhibit is also great for forcing players out of a strategic position. In general, Seer is a very powerful Recon legend who can provide valuable information and tactical advantages to his team. There's a reason more than half of the teams in the Pro League always have one. So give him a chance if you haven't before, he may take you out of plat. Support legends received a massive buff in Season 16. They now have the ability to access the med compartment in the blue supply bins and can craft teammates' banners in the replicator to bring them back even after their card has expired. Before this time, support legends weren't actually providing that much support. Starting with Gibraltar, he is the defensive legend in Apex who specializes in protecting his team and providing cover during intense battles. His abilities make him a great choice for players who enjoy playing a support role and providing value for their team. Gibraltar's passive ability, Gun Shield, provides him with a shield that covers his upper body while aiming down sights. His shield can absorb a considerable amount of damage and can be a lifesaver in clutch situations, especially since his hitbox is so large he really needs it. Gibraltar's tactical ability, Dome of Protection, creates a large dome-shaped shield that provides cover for him and his team. The shield lasts for 12 seconds and can be used to protect teammates while they heal, revive fallen allies, or reposition themselves during a firefight. When playing the bubble, I always advise you to carry a shotgun so you can deal devastating damage every time anyone peeks the shield. His ultimate defensive bombardment calls in a barrage of mortar shells that explode in a larger area, dealing damage to enemies and creating chaos on the battlefield. This ability can be especially useful when trying to hold down a strategic location or when defending against the enemy push. Gibraltar is a versatile legend that can provide valuable cover and protection to his team. His abilities are best used in a defensive role, but he can also be effective when pushing forward or engaging enemies directly. Although he has been seeing less use for quite some time now, I believe that with the direction the game is going, he may have a chance to return to the meta in the future. Lifeline has the smallest hitbox in the game and is by far the most annoying legend to play against, because she'll just keep on resting her team over and over again. The passive Combat Revive gives her the ability to automatically revive her allies using the Dock drone. With the updates in Season 16, the revive no longer has a slow penalty, so that makes it less risky to go for a rest. And when you are going for a revive on an ally, you shouldn't just run away and go for the fight. Instead, you should stay there to defend them, because 1, you'll get a lot of free damage on enemies that are peeking to finish your teammates, and 2, otherwise they'll just get finished or knocked again. Lifeline's tactical Dock Heal drone lets her deploy a drone that automatically heals allies attached to it over some time. If you're at 1 health, the drone should be used while you are popping a battery, so you'll be full health by the time the battery is done. Her ultimate lets her call in a care package that will send you utility items that your team needs. If someone on your team still has a blue shield, the package would contain a purple shield for your teammates. The ultimate was updated in Season 16 to come down much faster. Lifeline is a mid-tier pick in general, but can be of good use in the right hands. Like, seriously, start resting your teammates. This translocating thief has always found a way to remain viable. Her passive Eye for Quality lets her see epic and legendary items through structures within a 112.5 meter range. Loba can ping these items for her teammates so they can get that sweet loot as well. Her tactical Burglar's Best Friend is what really separates her from other support legends, because the bracelet lets her teleport to its location once thrown. Loba can use this to quickly reposition during fights, which should save her from certain death. Keep in mind, when you teleport to the bracelet, you can't pull out your gun immediately because of the animation that occurs at the end of a teleport. It takes a little while and can cost you some time if you are not careful. Loba's ultimate Black Market is really what gives her identity within Apex. The Black Market lets Loba place a device that has the ability to teleport items within the same range as her passive to you and your teammates' inventory. You can collect up to 2 separate items in the market, but can also take as much ammo that you need. Keep in mind that everyone can use your ultimate, including enemy teams. Her ultimate together with the support passive is really what makes her viable for competitive, because you can spend less time looting and more time planning your rotates and your strategy and just keep yourself topped up in a very sweaty lobby. You can also loot your teammates' banners in the Black Market after crafting them in the replicator. In top 5 situations, you can use her ability to steal enemy loot in the area, so Loba is a versatile legend that you can get a lot of value out of. However, playing her may not be for everyone. Newcastle, in my opinion, is one of the better legends in the game. He's easy to play and provides a lot of value for him and his team. I'd say he's kind of like a yin to Gibraltar's yang, where Gibraltar can kind of be considered the offensive shield support legend, and Newcastle leans more towards the defensive with a static defensive ability and the revive and whatever. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, Newcastle's passive lets him revive down teammates by dragging them and providing a shield as he does so. He moves fairly quickly while reviving, and the shield health is upgraded based on the type of knockdown shield that you have. With this ability, you can drag down enemies back into cover while reviving them at the same time. It can be annoying to play against a Newcastle who just won't stop reviving, just like with Lifeline, except Newcastle can pull the enemy out of a risky situation and have them covered, whereas Lifeline kind of leaves them easy to finish. His tactical mobile shield allows him to send out a drone that deploys a movable shield in front of you. This tactical is great for being aggressive by pushing those in the open. Again, just like with Jibby, I advise you to play a shotgun if you're up close, and Newcastle's ultimate Castle Wall enables you to launch into a targeted area or to a teammate and slam down to create a fortified wall out of nowhere. His ability is great if you need to take high ground or if there is no cover to play around, in which you create your own space. In endgame situations, it can play a huge role. In conclusion, Newcastle is a well-balanced legend that anyone can play. He's great for learning how to be aggressive and being safe while doing so. His only downside is that his hitbox is on the larger side, but that's just the cost of doing business. The controller class, contrary to popular belief, does not actually require you to play in controller. You can do it on mouse and keyboard, or a joystick, or bongo drums just fine. It is a brand new class that focuses on holding power positions and rotating into the ring. Legends in this class have the ability to scan the ring console to obtain information about the next ring. So by adding the next zone knowledge and game knowledge, they'll be able to deduct what structures they should hold. Most people believe that these legends are the most boring to play, and to some extent they are right. The legends in this class are more centered on competitive or ranked play, so they will feel boring to the average Joe, but there are some gems in here that can still be fun when we play them the right way. For example, Rampart is a legend who specializes in defense and heavy firepower. Her abilities make her a great choice for players who enjoy playing a more tactical or strategic role in their team's gameplay. Rampart's passive ability, Modded Loader, allows her to reload LMGs like the Spitfire faster and with increased magazine capacity. This makes her an excellent choice for players who prefer to use heavy weapons with high ammunition capacity. But then again, LMGs aren't really that good, so it doesn't really matter. But Rampart's tactical ability, Amped Cover, creates a deployable cover that provides increased damage to her and her teammates while shooting through it. The cover can be quickly destroyed, but it can also provide valuable protection during a firefight. Finally, her ultimate ability, the mobile minigun Sheila, allows her to wield a powerful minigun that can tear through the enemy players and structures with ease. The gun can also be mounted for anyone who wants to use it as a stationary turret and die, like, immediately. So we're going to be focusing on the mobile version of this, and the mobile minigun can be incredibly useful when trying to hold down a good position or when defending against an enemy push. Sheila is so powerful in the endgame. Some teams in the Pro League like Alliance or Lanimals have been trying her out in the current meta, and everyone has been calling them crazy, but everyone's going to keep calling them crazy until it starts working out. Rampart's abilities are best used in a defensive role, but she can also be effective when pushing forward or engaging enemies directly. Watson is a sterling controller with no focus on attack. Her abilities make her a great choice for players who enjoy bunkering down and being annoying. Watson's passive ability, Spark of Genius, allows her to fully recharge her ultimate ability by using ultimate accelerants, which normally would only give you 30%, and she can carry up to 2 ultimate accelerants per slot. With her passive, she also slowly regenerates shield health over time. Her tactical ability, Perimeter Security, allows her to deploy up to 12 electrified nodes that can connect to create a perimeter fence. Enemies who come into contact with the fence will take damage and will be slowed down. This ability is great for showing presence and can deter enemy teams from pushing you. Finally, Watson's ultimate ability, Interception Pylon, deploys a device that destroys incoming grenades and other projectiles and recharges shields for Watson and her teammates. This ability is often best paired with her tactical to hold down a location or give you a little bit of space. Keep in mind that her ultimate can be destroyed, so try to keep it out of the line of sight for enemies. Watson excels in competitive, but is relatively useless in lower ranks since everyone's just running around and gunning anyways. I also wouldn't recommend using her for solo queuing or whatever, but if you want to ruin a TTV Rave's day, you can go into pubs, drop into stream building, and just start fencing up the walls, and they don't like that. They really don't. Catalyst, on the other hand, provides a lot of utility for her and her team. She can reinforce doors, causing them to be stronger and lock enemies out. When there's a broken door, Catalyst can form a new door using Fairy Fluid. You can't actually open this door, but it will block the doorway, all with her passive Barricade. Catalyst's tactical Piercing Spikes allows her to throw a patch of Fairy Fluid, which becomes spikes that damage enemies that get too close to it. You can use this at the foot of doors to discourage enemies from going through that specific door. Catalyst also isn't affected by enemy spikes, so a good counter to Catalyst is Catalyst? Her ultimate Dark Veil is a porous wall formed by the Ferrofluid. The wall is her most useful ability because it can be used in a variety of ways, but its main use lies in isolating enemies and blocking line of sight. Catalyst has ended up being favored by the meta, and we've seen a lot of teams running her in the Pro League. This is because of her massive outsupply potential, where you can create a lot of space in the late game, And of course, when combined with scan legends such as Seer, you can combine Seer's ultimate with Catalyst's ultimate to kill enemies on the other side of the wall without them having a single chance of fighting back. Even though she's great at the highest levels, she is still pretty good for the average player as well. Finally, the last legend of this list, and I don't know what minute we're at, but as far as my recording goes, we're about 40 minutes in, or if not even more. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe, hit the like gas this video up a little bit. I'm really tired. This is a really long recording. Moving on though, Caustic is the last legend on this list, and he is the Toxic Trapper. He's a legend that works both for attack and defense. His main strengths lie in being a nightmare to push, especially in enclosed spaces. Caustic's passive ability, Nox Vision, allows him to see through his own gas, more on that later, which gives him an advantage when engaging enemies in close quarters. This can also be useful when trying to defend a building or when ambushing enemy players. His tactical ability, Nox Gas Trap, works hand in glove with Nox Vision. It allows him to deploy up to 6 canisters that release a toxic gas when triggered by enemies or by Caustic himself by shooting it. The gas will obscure enemy vision and deal damage over time, making it difficult for enemies to push or move through the area. It works best in small to medium-sized buildings, and you should always know the best spots to place your traps. Caustic's ultimate ability, Nox Gas Grenade, deploys a canister of toxic gas that explodes and covers a large area with gas. It does a lot of health damage quickly and can be used to block off enemy paths. And with that in mind, Caustic is of course one of those legends that bring a lot of value for the endgame. If you have a good Caustic player, you should win 99% of your endgames. If you're going to be playing Caustic, be mindful of his hitbox and also play a shotgun, since you can deal hefty damage to your blinded opponents. And don't be afraid to be aggressive at times, you never know what could happen. Anyways, 23 legends later, and you probably learned so much. From the speed of Octane to the patience of Watson, I'm sure you're ready to pick your main. And if you do, I wish you all the best. But before you go, you should learn some movement techniques which could make you even better, so check out the video on the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.